Well, it's a fact. Plants need CO2 to grow. So it may seem logical that the extra carbon humans have been pumping into the atmosphere would make plants grow more and in the process capture more carbon and mitigate climate change. But there's growing evidence that suggests the extra CO2 in the atmosphere isn't making trees grow more. And in fact, climate change is generating warmer, drier conditions that could make them grow less in many places. A recent study of cedar trees in Quebec is adding to that evidence. What's so special about these trees in this recent Canadian study is that they're North America's oldest boreal trees, allowing researchers to track changes much farther back in time. In fact, these cedars are between 600 and 1,000 years old. Now, the scientists found rising CO2 levels in the atmosphere since pre-industrial times did make trees more efficient at using water, but it didn't increase the growth of their trunks and therefore the amount of carbon they stored. Now, the researchers just drilled into the trees and took core samples, the samples about the width of a pencil, so that they could examine the growth rings. They ground those samples from each ring for chemical analysis. The rare trees grow on a small rocky island in western Quebec, and despite their impressive age, their trunks max out at about the width of a water cooler. And the tree's growth patterns showed no obvious changes before and after the Industrial Revolution. What they did notice was that after the start of the Industrial Revolution, as CO2 levels started climbing, the ancient cedars became dramatically more efficient at using water during photosynthesis. And that's something that's also being shown in other trees around the world when they're exposed to increased CO2 levels, allowing them to photosynthesize more efficiently. But the increased efficiency didn't lead to increased growth in these ancient cedars. And any gains they had started leveling off about 1965 when the region began seeing more extreme heat waves in summer that caused trees to shut down their photosynthesis to prevent water loss. And that's a trend that is likely to continue in a drier climate. Trees will rely more on their own reserves of carbon instead of sucking it from the atmosphere. The researchers said the findings about trees' water use means we may need to revise our understanding of how the water cycle will be affected by rising CO2 and climate change, as a lot of the Earth's water moves through trees and plants. And now, you're Science Smart. If you have a science question on your mind, send me a tweet. I'll try to get it answered.